A very good morning to all of you friends. I hope you guys are doing good. Now today we'll be proceeding with the remaining part of the chapter, that is of process costing, what we started in the last session. So guys, in the last session we started with process costing, wherein we discussed what is process costing, what is the meaning of normal gain, abnormal loss. Apart from this, the treatment thereof. Plus, we discussed few questions on basics of process costing. So now, without wasting time, let's proceed further, and we'll be discussing few more concepts relating to process costing. So starting with the first point for today, that is questions relating to inter-process profit. So guys, let's start with the concept of inter-process profit. Now, what is the concept? In simple terms, we can say, when earlier what we were doing is that whatever the cost of a particular process is, that is only charged to the process account, and whatever the output that is to be transferred to the next process, it is to be transferred at cost only. But now, what if in case if each process is treated as a separate profit center? In that case, the output of the process first will be transferred to process second at cost plus profit. So how to account the same? So let's start this concept with the help of example number 7 of my material. I request you guys to please download the material what I have provided. The similar question is there in the study material also. So let's start with example number 7. The similar question is there in the study material also. So let's start with example number 7. A Limited produced product AXE, which passes through two processes before it is completed and transferred to finished stock. The following data relates to March 2020, wherein the particulars is given as regards opening stock, direct material, direct wages, factory overhead, closing stock, inter-process profit included in opening stock. Now, output of the process first is transferred to process second at 25% profit on transfer price. So herein the output is not transferred at cost. Herein the output is transferred at cost plus profit to the next process. So in first process it is transferred to second process at profit of 25% profit on transfer price. Similarly, output of process second is transferred to finished stock at 20% profit on transfer price. Okay. Now stock in process is valued at prime cost. Okay. Finished stock is valued at the price at which it is received from process second. Sales during the period are 1,40,000. Prepare process cost account, finished goods account showing the profit element at each stage. So guys, let's start with example number 7. The similar question is there in the study material, and it is in my material it is example number 7. So let's start, guys. Now see, since the profit is involved, so the process account will be prepared as follows. That is process first account. So 3 columns will be prepared on both the side. That is cost, the profit amount, and last but not least the total. So let's start, guys, with example number 7. So here in opening stock is given, that is 7,500. Since it is the first process, so no profit is involved. So opening stock is 7,500. Then material is 15,000. Wages is 11,200. Now, since it is given that the closing stock is valued at prime cost, so we'll first write down the prime cost. So opening stock plus material plus wages, so 7,500 plus 15,000 plus 11,200, that is 33,700. Since it is the first process, so no profit is involved. We'll deduct closing stock. That is 3,700 and 3,700. So the final figure will be 30,000 and 30,000. We'll add factory overheads also. To get the total cost, that is 10,500 and 10,500. So the total cost will be 40,500 and 40,500. This will be transferred to the next process, that is process second. Now this cost column will remain same. There will be no change in the cost column. However, when talking about the total column, since it is saying that the output of process first is transferred to process second at 25% profit on transfer price. They are saying 25% profit on transfer price. So very simple, guys. Assume transfer price is 100. So the profit is given, that is 25. Therefore, the cost will be equal to 75%. So this 40,500 is equals to 75. So how much will be 100? $54,000. So this 54,000 will be the total amount that will appear in the total column minus 40,500. So the profit element will be 13,500. So now we'll balance this account. That is 13,500 and 13,500. This is how we'll get the total amount. That is 40,500, 13,500 and 54,000. So this is how the process first account is prepared. Herein, I repeat again, when we are talking about the questions relating to inter-process, wherein the inter-process profit is involved. So this is the way we will prepare the process account, wherein the three columns of the debit side, that is cost, profit and total, And on the credit side also cost, profit and total. So if you guys have any doubts till now, you guys can please ask me relating to the first process account. Due to space constraint, I'll be erasing this part. So if you guys have any doubts in process first account, you guys can please ask me. Waiting for your queries. Thank you so much, Mr. Siddharth. Thank you so much. If you guys have any doubts in this part, you guys can please ask me. Waiting for your queries, guys. So let's proceed further, guys. We are done with process first account. Process second account will be prepared in the similar way only. Now the output of process first is to be transferred to process second. So to process first, that is 40,500. Profit is 13,500 and the total is 54,000. So Vrinda Agrawal, either you can deduct the closing stock on the debit side or else you can show closing stock on the credit side. Both the approaches are correct, Vrinda. Mansi Sinha, again the same query. Sir, where is the closing stock? Closing stock is deducted in the debit side itself instead of being presented in the credit side. So both the approaches are correct. Very good morning, Mr. Dorji. So let's start guys with process second account. So herein the opening stock is given. And that is 9,000. And further it is given in the question that inter-process profit included in opening stock, that is 1,500. So 9,000, 1,500. So this will be 7,500. Now material. $15,750. Wages 11,250. Since it is given that closing stock is to be valued at prime cost, so we'll first calculate the prime cost. Very good morning, Pooja. That is 75,000. This is 15,000. And this is 90,000. Now, the closing stock is given in the question, that is 4,500. So we'll deduct closing stock. That is 4,500. Now, how to calculate the profit element involved in closing stock? So guys, it is given in the question that stock in process is valued at prime cost. So this is the prime cost. So total 15,000 is the profit on 90,000. Total 15,000 profit is there on 90,000. So how much profit will be there on 4,500? We have to calculate the proportionate profit. I repeat again, 15,000 is the overall profit on 90,000 total. So how much will be the profit? How much will be the proportionate profit on 4,500? And that will be 15,000 divided by 90,000 into 4,500. That is 750. So this will be 375 view. So this will be 71 250, 14 250, 85 500. Now we'll add factory overheads in it. Factory overheads are given in the question, that is 4,500 in total. So now we have got the total cost. $90,000, 14,250 is the profit. 75,750 is the total cost. Now the output of process second is transferred to process third. There is no process third, sorry. There is finished stock account. The cost figure will remain the same, that is 75,750. Now when talking about the total column, see, in case of process second, the aggregate cost till date is 75,750. But here in the output of process second is transferred to finished stock at cost plus profit, and the profit element is 20% profit on transfer price. So this figure includes, this 90,000 includes the profit that is added from process first. So we'll consider 90,000 to calculate the total value. That is 90,000 is equals to 80%, since profit on transfer price is 20%. Therefore, 90,000 is equals to 80. So how much will be 100? $1,12,500. Why I have calculated on 90,000? Because this 90,000 includes the profit element that is added at process first stage. I repeat again, why I have taken 90,000 for the purpose of calculating this total amount. Reason being, this 90,000 includes the profit that is added at process first. So since we have to calculate the overall profit, so that's why we have taken 90,000. So 90,000 is equals to 80%. So how much will be 100%? That is 1,12,500. So total profit till date is 36,750. And profit for this process account will be 36,750 minus 14,250. So profit will be 22,500. So guys, if you have any doubts, you guys can please ask me. Waiting for your queries, guys. This is all what about process second account. I repeat again, guys. The output of process first is transferred to process second account. That is the cost 40,500. The profit is 13,500. The total is 54,000. Now, the opening stock is given in the question, that is 9,000, and the profit as included in opening stock is 1,500. So this is how we calculated the cost, that is 7,500. Now material is 15,750. The wages is 11,250. So this is how we got the prime cost, that is 75,000. Profit is 15,000 and the total is 90,000. Now, since it is given in the question that the closing stock is valued at prime cost, that's why we calculated this prime cost. Now, total profit is 15,000 on overall total 90,000. I repeat again, total profit is 15,000 on this 90,000. Since the closing stock is 4,500, so the proportionate profit that is for 4,500 will be 750. That is 15,000 for 90,000. So how much will be for 4,500? So this is how I got 750. So 4,500 minus 750. So this is how we will get the total cost, that is 3,750. Now closing stock will be deducted. So 75,000 minus 3,750, that will be 7,1,250. 15,000 minus 750, that is the profit element involved in closing stock, so 14,250, and 90,000 minus 4,500, that is 85,500. Now in this we will add the factory overhead, that is 4,500 and 4,500 to derive the total cost, that is 75,750 and 14,250, and in aggregate 90,000. Now, since it is given in the question that the output is to be transferred at 20% profit on transfer price, the output of process second is to be transferred at 20% profit on transfer price. The output of process second is to be transferred at 20% profit on transfer price. So assuming transfer price is 100, profit is 20. So the cost will be how much? Very simple, 80. So this 90,000 is equals to 80%. So how much will be the 100%? That is 1,12,500. So the balancing figure will be the profit, that is 36,750. And now 36,750 is the total profit till date. Out of this, 14,250 is the profit of the process first. So the profit that is earned in process second is 22,500. This is the balancing figure, guys. That is 36,750 minus 14,250, that is 22,500. So if you guys have any doubts, you guys can please ask me. Ms. Vanchuk, I hope it is understood now. I have explained this concept once again. Mr. Tandin also, again, I have explained this concept once again. So hopefully it is clear to both of you. Pooja, hopefully this part is clear. I have explained this once again. How come closing stock? That is the total closing stock is 4,500. That is given in the question. Since we have to calculate the proportionate profit, so we can easily say that 15,000 profit is for 90,000. So how much will be the profit for 4,500? Very simple, 750. So this is how we get the cost of closing stock, that is 3,750. Miss Shrishti, hopefully this part is clear. This is the balancing figure, that is 75,750 is tallied, but 36,750 minus 22,500. Sorry, 36,750 minus 14,250. This is the balancing figure, 22,500. Mr. Teshwang, hopefully your doubt is resolved. If you want me to explain this again, I can explain. And if you guys are clear with it, then we'll proceed further. Millie Gupta, opening stock is given in the question, that is 9,000, and inter-process profit included in opening stock is 1,500, that is given in the question. So 9,000 is the total amount, 1,500 is the profit element involved in the opening stock. So this much will be the cost, Millie. Mr. Teshwang, hopefully your doubt is resolved. Still you want me to discuss this again? I can. This is the balancing figure, my dear. See, this is the input received from process first. This much is the opening stock. This is the material. This is the labor. So this is the total prime cost. That is the total of all these three. In this, we deducted closing stock to get this amount. In this, we added further factory overhead to calculate the total cost. Now, since we have got the total cost and this much is the final amount that is to be transferred to finished stock, so this minus this will be the balancing figure, that is the profit part. So hopefully, Sharam G. Krishnan, your doubt is resolved. Anyone else? Mr. Teshwang, you guys, you are clear with this concept, or do you want me to explain this again? So let's proceed, guys. Now the last account, that is finished stock account. Sales will be considered in finished stock account, Radhika. Now, let's start with the finished stock account. Here in the opening stock is given, that is 22,500. Now it is given in the question that inter-process profit included in opening stock is 8,250. So the total amount, the cost amount will be 22,500 minus 8250, and this will be 14,250. Now the input received from process second, that is 75,750, 36,750, $1,12,500. So this much is received from process second account. Now since no costs are incurred, so we will first find out the total, that is 1,12,500, 22,500. So this will be 1,35,000. Total profit till date is 8,250 plus 36,750. That will be 45,000. And this will be 90,000. Now we have to reduce the closing stock, that is less closing stock. Now the closing stock value is 11,250. Now guys, it is given in the question that stock in process is valued at prime cost. So for process second, we calculated the profit using prime cost. But very important, it is given in the question that finished stock, that is the finished stock, is valued at the price at which it is received from process second. I repeat again, it is not valued at prime cost. It is not valued at this prime cost. It is given that closing stock is valued at the price at which it is received from process second. That is the value received from process second. So 11,250 is the total value of closing stock. We will not consider 45,000 and 1,35,000 because this is the prime cost. It is said in the question, the question is saying that finished stock is valued at the price at which it is received from process second. Received from process second, the figures are 75,750, 36,750 is the profit, and 1,12,500 is the total. So 36,750 is the total profit on 1,12,500. Therefore, on 11,250, how much will be the profit? Why I have done this, why I have taken these figures rather than these figures? The reason is that it is given in the question that finished stock is valued at price at which it is received from process second, not at prime cost. So that's why I have taken these figures. So 36,750 is the total profit on 1,12,500. So on 11,250, how much it will be? So 36,750 divided by 1,12,511. So this will be 3,675. So 11,250. So this will be 7,575. So final value will be now, since the finished goods are finally sold in the market, so we can transfer it to costing P&L or income statement, whatever it is. That is 8,2,425 is the total cost, that is till date. Since it is given in the question that the sales during the period were 1,40,000, so the sales figure is given in the question. that is 1,40,000. So 140 minus 82425. So the overall profit till date is 57,575. So profit for the year, that is profit for finished stock account is 57,575 minus 41325. So this will be 16,250 and 16,250. So this is how finished stock account is prepared. Now, those who have any doubts in example number 7 can please ask me. I'll try to address all your queries. So waiting for your queries in this example number 7. Whosoever is having any doubts can please post your queries. We'll discuss all your queries for example number 7 and then we'll proceed with work in progress. What if in case work in progress is involved in the question? So waiting for your queries, guys, giving you 2 minutes time. So those who want to post the queries can please post. Waiting for your queries. Radhika, I have already considered the sales. Miss Tulsi, sir, profit in opening and closing stock in process second. So opening stock profit is given in the question in case of process second, and in case of closing stock, since the closing stock is valued at prime cost, so we have calculated the proportionate profit for the closing stock of 4,500. Very good morning, Mr. Subo. Waiting for your queries, guys. Mr. Naidu, sir, how profit will be there in opening stock in process second? See, the opening stock of process second is what? The output that is received from process first. And in process first, we are transferring to process second at cost plus profit. That's why it is given that there is an opening stock and herein the profit is included. So this profit is what? This profit is basically the profit on stock that is received from process first. Mr. Sharan Kumar, sir, please explain the profit part again. See, guys, 90,000, 45,000, 135,000, these are the figures what we got. Now, when talking about valuation of closing stock, it is not valued at prime cost in case of finished goods. It is valued at the price that is received from process second. They are following the LIFO method. So, herein, the total closing stock is 11,250. Now, since the price at which it is received from process second, these are the figures that is received from process second. So 36,750 is the total profit on 1,12,500. So how much will be the proportionate profit on 11,250? And that is 3,675. So this is how the profit is calculated. As far as this profit is concerned, this is the balancing figure, that is 57,575 minus 41,325. This is how I got 16,250. This is the balancing figure, guys. Debit and credit is not matching. This is the balancing figure we have calculated. I repeat again. This is the balancing figure, that is 16,250, that is 82425, the same 57575 minus 41,325, 16,250, 140 minus 123,750, that is 16,250. So this account never tallies. You will find the balancing figure in every account. Miss Pooja. See, Mr. Dorji, sir, why closing stock of process second is rupees 4? Why closing stock of process second rupees 4,500 is directly taken to the total, whereas in process first it is considered same as cost only. See, it is given that the output of process first is transferred to process second. So first, the process first is the basic process wherein no profit is involved. They are just taking the input of raw material, doing further processing, and thereafter the output of process first is transferred to process second at cost plus profit. So as far as process first is concerned, there is no profit element involved. But yes, in process second, it includes the input of the process second includes the profit that is basically considered at process first level. I repeat again, guys, at process first there is no profit involved, whereas in process second the input is received from process first, which is itself at profit. That's why I have taken in total column minus the profit, and this is how we calculated the total cost. I hope, Mr. Dorji, that your query is resolved. What further it is given in the question that inter-process profit included in opening stock. That's why we have taken it in the total column. It's up to you, Radhika, to put commas or not. Madhavi, sir, how you calculated 57575? See, this much is the total cost and this much is the sales that is given. So 140 minus 82425. Ria Bhatia, no time today for machine hour rate. I'll surely keep a query session. Sir, please explain the income statement of illustration number 3. What is illustration number 3? Ria, let me discuss first of all the concepts of equivalent number of units. If we are left out with time, with some time, we'll surely discuss the income statement. Ria Bhatia, today we will not, we'll surely discuss the machine hour rate concept, but not now in the query session. I'll request ICAI to give me a query session so I can address all your queries. So don't worry, Ria. Anyone else having any doubt? Thank you, Miss Tulsi. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, Miss Goyal, I skipped your query. So any other doubts in this question, you guys can ask me. Waiting for your queries, guys. So this is all what about, where in case if inter-process profit is involved in every process, so how to account for the same, we have discussed this in illustration number 7 of the material what I have provided. Now let's start, guys, without wasting any time. Let's start, guys, with the concept of work in progress. So let's start with work in progress. Another part of the chapter, a very important concept. Now, till now we discussed the cases wherein whatever the output of a particular process is, that is to be transferred to the next process. It means what? That whatever the production process that is started on a particular product are all finished by the year end, and thereafter whatever the output that is derived from a particular process, that is to be transferred to the next process. But what if in case, let's say the total input was made of 10,000 units, out of this 9,000 units were finished, but 1,000 units were still not completed by year end and they are still in process. So how to calculate the value of work in progress? I repeat again, guys. Till now we have discussed that if there is an input, then the output, we get a finished output, and the finished output is transferred to the next process. But what if in case, if certain goods remain unfinished at the year end? So how to calculate the value of work in progress? So when talking about work in progress, what is work in production? What is work in progress? Very simple. The goods started but not completed. The production process started but not completed. Production process started but not completed. When talking about work in progress, what is work in progress? Production process started on inputs but not completed by year end. So that is work in progress. Now, when talking about the number of units, it's very easy for us to identify that these units are unprocessed, or these units are semi-processed, or these units are finished goods. So let's say I made an input of 10,000 units. Of this, 6,000 units were finished and 4,000 units are still in process. We can easily identify these 4,000 units. But the point is how to calculate the value of these 4,000 units. That is a big problem. Again, I repeat, in a factory, I have made an input of 10,000 units, and let's say 6,000 units are finished and 4,000 units are in process. We can easily identify these 4,000 units. So when talking about in terms of units, it's easy for us to identify that how much units are in process. But the major question is, what is the value of these unprocessed units or semi-processed units? That is a big question. So herein, when talking about the valuation, it is a big problem. So herein the concept of equivalent production comes into picture. Mr. Siddharth, I'll be addressing your query. Just give me 2-3 minutes. So I repeat again, it is easy for us to identify that how much units are finished and how much units are still in process. But the major question is, what is the value of these finished goods and what is the value of these semi-finished goods? That is a big question. So herein, when talking about the valuation of these semi-finished goods, the concept of equivalent production comes into picture. So now what is the concept of equivalent production? Let me address this query of Mr. Siddharth. Sir, how do we understand that the values in question has to be put in the cost column or total column? How to understand whether the profit is included or not in the table? So now, Mr. Siddharth, as far as material, labor, other expenses are concerned, it is the cost figure. But when talking about opening stock and closing stock in general, again, guys, I'm addressing the query on the last question, that is of Mr. Siddharth. So he's asking that, sir, how to identify what all figures are to be written in the cost column and what all figures are to be written in the total column. So mostly question will give you hints, but apart from this, as far as the opening stock and closing stock is concerned, it is advisable to put it in the total column only, and then we have to write the profit, and from total minus profit will be the cost. So now, guys, work in progress we started, wherein what is work in progress? Units started for units started but not completed by year end are work in progress. But again, very simple. As far as identification of number of units is concerned, it is a very easy task. But the problem is how to calculate the value of these semi-processed or semi-finished goods. So herein the concept of equivalent production comes into picture. Now, what is the concept of equivalent production? Let me take a basic scenario. Let's say total 10,000 units we manufactured. Total 10,000 units we manufactured and they were 100% complete. This is what we were doing till now. The total cost that is incurred till date is, let's say, 1 lakh. So this, at this point of time, it is very easy for us to calculate the cost per unit, and that is 1 lakh divided by 10,000. I repeat again, what we were doing till now is that we used to calculate the total cost and divided by the total number of units. So this is how we were getting the cost per unit. So in this case, let's say 10,000 units were manufactured and they were 100% complete. So, and the total cost incurred for these 10,000 units is, let's say, 1 lakh. So the cost per unit will be rupees 10 per unit. So this rupees 10 per unit is what? The cost per unit of the 100% completed units. Now let's say if in a particular case, let's say these units are 60% complete. So the cost will be very simple, 10 into 60%. That is rupees 6. Let's say if these units are 50% complete, so we can simply say rupees 5 per unit will be the cost. Let's say these units are 20% complete, so we can say the cost will be rupees 2 per unit. So this is a very basic scenario wherein in question it is given that only 10,000 units were manufactured and they were 100% processed, and the cost incurred till date is 1 lakh rupees. So it was very easy for us to calculate the cost per unit, that is rupees 10 per unit. Now since we have got the cost of 100% completed unit, so it is very easy for us to calculate the cost of the units which are 60% complete, that is rupees 6, 50% completed units will be rupees 5, and those units which are 20% complete is rupees 2 per unit. So this is a very simple scenario. Now let's take a different scenario. Those who want to copy this part can please copy. Giving you 2 minutes time to please copy. Thereafter, we'll be taking a different scenario to understand the utility of equivalent number of units. Now let's take a different scenario let's say the total cost incurred is, let's say, 3 lakh rupees. Now, when talking about the at year end, when talking about the number of units that were produced, so let's say 5,000 units were produced, which were 100% complete. Further, 3,000 units were produced, which were only 50% complete. And let's say 2,000 units were manufactured, which were 40% complete. So now we have to calculate the cost per unit. Now it's very difficult for us to calculate the cost per unit, because herein we don't know that how much the 100% units are completed. I repeat again, the total cost incurred till date is rupees 3 lakh. When talking about the output of a particular process, total 5,000 units were manufactured, which were 100% complete. 3,000 units were manufactured, which were only 50% complete, and 2,000 units were manufactured, which were 40% complete. So the question is how to calculate the cost per unit. In the last question, it was simply given that this much is the cost incurred divided by the units which are 100% complete. But now here in 3 categories of output are given. So how to calculate the cost per unit? So herein the concept of equivalent production comes into picture. See, these 5,000 units are 100% complete. So we'll write 5,000. These 3,000 units are 50% only complete. So we'll write 3,000 into 15%, that is 50%, that is 500. Why I have written 1,500? It means what? That whatever the cost that is incurred for 1,500 units which are 100% complete will be equal to 3,000 units will be equal, which are 50% complete. I repeat again, guys, why I have taken 1,500? It means what? The equivalent number of units are 1,500. Good morning, Mr. Rohan. So now, guys, 3,000 units are 50% complete. So we will convert these 3,000 units which are 50% complete into 100% completed unit. So this will be 1,500 units which are 100% complete. Now, why this 1,500 units which are 100% complete? Very simple, guys. It means what? That whatever the cost that is incurred for 3,000 units which are 50% complete, it will be equal to 1,500 units which are 100% complete. That is, the cost will be the same. Similarly, 2,000 units which are 40% complete. So in this case, how much will be the units which are 100% complete? That is 800. So again, the same thing, that whatever the cost that is incurred for 800 units which are 100% complete will be equal to 2,000 units which are 40% complete. So now we have got the equivalent number of units, that is to avoid the decimal, let's take the total cost as 2,19,000 only. To avoid decimal, let's take the total cost as 2,19,000 only. So now, herein we have got the equivalent number of units, that is 7,300 number of units which are 100% complete. So 2,19,000 is the total cost. Divided by 7,300 units which are 100% complete. So the cost per unit will be rupees 30 per unit for the units which are 100% complete. So now we have got the cost per unit of the units which are 100% complete. So we can easily calculate the cost of units which are 50% complete and 40% complete. So 50% completed units cost will be how much? 30 into 50%, that is 15. Those units which are 40% complete, this will be 30 into 40%, that is rupees 12 per unit. When talking about this part, that is how the cost will be equal. So these, let's say in this case, second category, 3000 units which are 50% complete. So the cost of these 3000 units will be 3000 into 15 per unit. This will be equal to 1500 units which are 100% complete. So 1500 units into 100% completed cost is 30. So this cost will be equal, that is 45,000 and 45,000. So both these things are same, that is 3000 units which are 50% complete will be equal to 1500 units which are 100% complete. So this is the concept of equivalent number of units. So if you guys have any doubts till now in this concept, you guys can ask me. When the question is simple and it is given that this much is the output and it is 100% complete, it's very easy for us to calculate the cost per unit. But what if in case if there are units that are in process, how to calculate the cost per unit? So to calculate the cost per unit, we uses the concept of equivalent number of units. When talking about how to calculate equivalent number of units, see 5000 units that are 100% complete is 5000. 3000 units which are 50% complete will be 1500. 2000 units which are 40% complete will be 800. It means what? Whatever the cost that is incurred for 2000 units which are 40% complete will be equal to 800 units which are 100% complete. So if you guys have any doubts, so this is how we calculated the equivalent number of units, that is 7300 units which are 100% complete. So the total cost 2,19,000 divided by 7,300 units which are 100% complete. So the cost per unit will be rupees 30 per unit for the units which are 100% complete. So if in case we have to calculate the cost of units which are 50% complete, so 30 into 15%, 50% will be rupees 15 per unit. If we have to calculate the cost of units which are 40% complete, so 30 into 40%, that is 12 rupees per unit. When equating these two, we will get the same figure, and this is how we prove that this is equal. That is, the cost is equal, whether it is 3000 into 50%, that is 1500, or 3000 units which are 50% complete. So now this is what the basic concept of equivalent number of units. Why this equivalent number of units? I have discussed this with the help of that example. So those who want to copy this explanation can please copy, and you can write your comment that why concept of equivalent number of units and how it is applied. You can note it down. Very good morning, Mr. Suraj. Thank you, Ms. Pooja. So waiting for your queries, and I request you guys to please copy this explanation. It will be very helpful for you while revising for the paper. And further, I request you to write your comments in the notebook. It's not practically possible for you to every time view the pre-recorded lecture. So better it is write in notebook about the comment. Write in notebook your comments on the same and copy this explanation, please. No, Ria, we can't do this. because the unit manufactured are 5,000 plus 3,000 units which are 50% complete, 2,000 units that are 40% complete. So we can't follow this approach. Anyone having any doubts can please post your queries. Waiting for your queries, guys. Please copy this explanation and write your comments in that explanation itself, because it will be very difficult for you to again go through the pre-recorded lecture. So I request you to please write your comments in your notebook itself. So it will be very helpful for you while you're revising for the exams. So let's start, guys. I request you guys to please download the material what I have provided. I'll be discussing the concept of equivalent production with the help of an example that is on slide number 15. So please, I request you guys to please download the material what I have provided. So I'll be discussing the concept of equivalent production. So I request you guys to please refer slide number 15 of the material what I have provided. So let's start, guys. There is an input of 10,000 units. The material cost is 49,000. The overhead cost is material cost is 49,000. The labor is 19,200. The overheads are given, that is 28,800. Units transfer to the next process is 9,000. And the closing work in progress is 1,000 units. Of this material, the percentage of completion of material is 80%, and labor and overheads are completed up to 60%. You are required to prepare the statement of equivalent number of units. You are required to prepare the statement of equivalent production and calculate the value of units transferred and closing work in progress. Now, guys, to explain the concept of equivalent number of units, let's discuss this example. Herein the total input is made, that is of 10,000 units. Out of these 10,000 units, 9,000 units are 100% completed and transferred to the next process. But 1,000 units are still in process. When talking about the percentage of completion, it is given that material part is 80% complete and labor and overheads 60%. Radhika sir, could you please provide hints that how should one have to write comment? See Radhika, it's not a comment, it's just like your explanation on the notebook that what you have understood in this session. I repeat again Radhika, it's about your explanation in your own words that what you have understood in your session, what you have understood in this session, so that it will be very helpful for you that is what the sir said and that is what I understood. So this will be good for you while revising for the exams. Anyways, let's proceed further. So there is a total input of 10,000 units. Out of this, 9,000 units were 100% completed and transferred to the next process. When talking about closing work in progress, we were left out with 1,000 units. As far as material is concerned, that is 80% complete, and labor is concerned, that is 60% complete. Now, we have to first calculate the cost per unit. So very simple, guys. Again, the same concept, but in a systematic way we will be discussing. So we will be preparing a statement of equivalent number of units. Statement of So particulars is the first column. Total. Since the percentage of completion of material, labor and overheads is different, so we'll prepare a separate column for material. As far as labor and overheads are concerned, they are 60% complete, so no need to prepare a separate column for labor and overheads. We can simply prepare labor and overheads a combined column. The percentage of completion and units. The percentage of completion and units. So now guys, let's talk about this part, that is units transferred. That is total 9,000 units. These are 100% completed in respect of material and 100% completed in respect of labor and overheads. So the equivalent number of units will be 9,000 as far as material is concerned, and as far as labor and overheads is concerned, it is also 9,000. See, in the last example what we have discussed, we have it was given the total cost. There was no separate cost for material and labor. So we were calculating only one equivalent number of units. But in this case, the separate cost is given for material, labor and overhead. That's why we have done all this exercise. So units transferred is 9,000, 100% for material, that is 9,000. And since they are 100% complete in respect of labor and overheads also, that's why 100%, and the equivalent number of units will be 9,000. Now when talking about closing work in progress, the total number of units are 1,000 units. Now these units are processed, these units are semi-processed, and as far as material is concerned, they are only 80% processed in case of material. So 80% only processed in case of material. So this will be 1,000 into 80%, that will be 800. As far as labor and overheads is concerned, they are processed only up to 60%. So 1,000 into 60%, that will be 600. So now we can easily calculate the total equivalent number of units. So the total input is 10,000. The equivalent number of units for material is 9,800. That is 9,000 units which are 100% complete and 1,000 units which are 80% complete. Similarly, for labor and overheads, 9,000 units which are 100% complete and 1,000 units which are 60% complete. So this is how we got 9,600. So we are doing the same thing but in a systematic and arranged way. So this is in that case we have to prepare the statement of equivalent production. Now we have to calculate the cost per unit. Now we can easily calculate the cost per unit. So calculation of cost per unit. When talking about material, the total cost incurred in case of material is 49,000 and the equivalent number of units in case of material is 9,800. So the cost per unit will be 49,000 is the total cost of material divided by equivalent number of units, that is 9,800. So this will be rupees 5 per unit. When talking about labor, the total cost incurred in case of labor is 19,200 and the equivalent number of units, that is 9,000 units which are 100% complete and 1,000 units which are 60% complete. So the equivalent number of units is 9,600. So the cost will be rupees 2 per unit. When talking about overheads, the total cost that is incurred is 28,800 divided by the equivalent number of units in case of overhead is the same, that is 9,600. So this will be rupees 3 per unit. So the total cost that is will be rupees 10 per unit for the units which are 100% completed. So this is what the cost of units which are 100% completed is rupees 10 per unit. So now it's easy for us to value the units that are transferred to the next process, that is valuation of units transferred. This will be total 9,000 units are transferred and the cost per unit, since they are 100% complete, so the cost per unit is rupees 10. So this will be 90,000. Now moving towards the next part, that is valuation of closing work in progress. So let's calculate the cost per unit of closing work in progress. Calculation of cost per unit of closing work in progress. Again, material cost is rupees 5 per unit. And since material is completed only up to 80%, so 5 into 80%, so rupees 4. I repeat again, the material cost for 100% processed unit is rupees 5. So since in case of closing work in progress, material is completed up to 80%, so 5 into 80%, that is rupees 4. Similarly, in case of labor, the labor for 100% completion is rupees 2 per unit, and since labor is completed up to 60% in case of closing work in progress, so this will be 1.2. Similarly, in case of overheads, the cost for 100% completed units is 3 into these units are processed up to 60%. So this will be 1.8. So this cost per unit will be rupees 7 per unit. So now we can easily value the closing work in progress. So valuation, the total number of units of closing work in progress is 1,000 into 7 per unit. So this will be rupees 7,000. So I repeat again, guys, when talking about the calculation of equivalent number of units, in the last question we discussed it normally, but since the examiner do ask you to prepare a systematic statement, so we have prepared a statement of equivalent production wherein the total input was of 10,000. Of this, 9,000 units were transferred to the next process and 1,000 units are still in process. So here in 9,000 units, because they are transferred to the next process, so assuming they are 100% complete, so 9,000 into 100%, 9,000. In case of labor and overheads also, assuming they are 100% processed, so 9,000 into 100%, 9,000. When talking about closing work in progress, we are left out with 1,000 units, which are 80% complete in respect of material. So 1,000 into 80%, that is 800. And as far as labor and overheads are concerned, they are only completed up to 60%. So 1,000 into 60%, that will be 600. So this is how we got the equivalent number units for material, that is 9,800, and labor and overheads, that is 9,600. Why separate column of material and labor are prepared? Because the percentage of completion of material is 80%, whereas labor and overheads is only 60%. That's why separate column for material, labor and overheads is prepared. Now, since we have got the equivalent number of units, so it's very easy for us to calculate the cost per unit. That is, material cost in aggregate is incurred as 49,000 divided by equivalent number of units, that is 9,800. So this is how we got 5 per unit. Similarly, in case of labor, the cost incurred is 19,200 divided by equivalent number of units, that is 9,600. So this is how I got rupees 2 per unit. And as far as overhead, we have got rupees 3 per unit. Now this is the total cost, that is 5 plus 2 plus 3, rupees 10 is the cost of units which are 100% complete. So rupees 10 is the cost of the units which are 100% complete. So we can easily value the we can easily calculate the value of units that are transferred. So 9,000 units in aggregate were transferred, and the cost of 100% completed unit is rupees 10. So 9,000 into 10 is 90,000. Now moving towards the next part, that is valuation of closing work in progress. Rupees 5 is the cost of 100% completion. Since material is completed up to 80%, so 5 into 80%, 4. Again, rupees 2 and 3 are the cost for 100% completion. But since the closing work in progress is processed only 60% in case of labor and overheads, so 2 into 60% and 3 into 60%. So this is how we got the total cost, that is 7 rupees per unit for closing work in progress. So 1,000 units into 7,000. So if you guys have any doubts, you guys can please ask me. Waiting for your queries, guys. Whatever the queries you have, any conceptual queries you have, you guys can please ask me. Waiting for your queries, guys. Alternatively, guys, you can calculate the value of work in progress like as I told you in the last example that 3,000 into 50% will be equal to 1,500, 100%. I repeat again, in the last example, I told you if 3,000 units are 50% complete, the cost will be the same of 1,500 units which are 100% complete. So let's take this concept only. So valuation of work in progress as far as material is concerned, 1,000 units which are 80% complete, that is 800 into the cost of 100%, so into 5, that is 4,000. Similarly, when talking about labor, 1,000 units which are 60% complete, that is 600 into the cost per unit of 100, that is 1,200. Similarly, 1,000 units which are 60% complete in case of overheads also. So 600 into the cost of overheads for 100% is 3. So again, you can use both the approaches to calculate the value of closing work in progress. So if you guys have any doubts, you guys can please ask me. Yes, Mr. Sunil, this is the way you have to solve the problems of work in progress. So guys, let's take a break of 5 minutes and then we'll start with the additional questions. But before that, whatever the queries you have, you guys can please post the queries. I'll be addressing all your queries. Any conceptual doubts, why we are doing this, why we are doing this, why that, whatever it is, by any query you have, you guys can please post. Let's take a break of 10 minutes. We'll be back after 10 minutes and we'll try to address all your queries. So, sir, let's take a break. Admin, sir. Welcome back, guys, after a break, much needed break. So now we have discussed the concepts of equivalent production. There is a query from Mr. Vanchuk. Sir, since 80% of the material and 60% of the labor and overhead is complete, the remaining incomplete work is 20% for material and 40% of labor and overheads. So work in closing. So calculated based on completed work. Little confusion on this, sir. See dear, 80% and 60% represents what? That is the work that is completed during this year. The remaining 20% and 40% will be completed next year. So for next year, in the opening work in progress, in case of opening work in progress, the balance work will be completed on opening work in progress. That is, in the next year, opening work in progress will be further processed in case of material by 20% and in case of labor and overhead by 40%. So this much represents the work completed during this year, and this will be the opening work in progress for the next year. And opening work in progress will be further processed next year, 20% in case of material, and labor and overhead, it will be 40%. Apart from this, if you have any doubts, you guys can please ask me. Waiting for your queries, guys. Mr. Manjunath, Vrinda, Pooja, Riya Bhatia, Riya Goyal, Sai Ram, Jay Gandhi, Siddharth, Khushi, anyone, if you have any doubts, any conceptual query, why concept of equivalent number of units? Waiting for your answers, guys. Waiting for your queries, guys. Now, we discussed a very simple scenario. What if in work in progress is given? So how to calculate the value of work in progress? So in this question, whatever the input is made, that is of 10,000 units, out of this 10,000 units, 9,000 units were transferred and 1,000 units are still in process. That is closing work in progress. Now my point is, what if in case opening work in progress is also given in the question? What if in case opening work in progress is also given in the question? Let's say opening work in progress is given, let's say 4,000 units introduced in the process, let's say 16,000 units. So total it was 20,000 units. Out of this 20,000 units, let's say 15,000 units were transferred. And 5,000 units are closing work in progress. I repeat again, guys. Opening work in progress is given in the question, that is 4,000 units. Units introduced is 16,000 units. So in aggregate, we have 20,000 inputs in hand. Out of this 20,000 inputs, 15,000 units were transferred and 5,000 units were from 5,000 units are still in process. Now the question is how to value the units transferred and closing work in progress, because there is a big question. let's say these 15,000, we have to find out that these 15,000 units are transferred entirely from 16,000. I repeat again, these 15,000 units are transferred entirely from 16,000 units that are introduced, or 4,000 from opening WIP and the balance 11,000 from units introduced. So these are the possibilities. I repeat again, guys, we are discussing the concept wherein opening work in progress is given in the question. That is, opening work in progress is of 4,000 units. Units introduced are 16,000. So in aggregate, we have 20,000 inputs in hand. Out of these 20,000 units, 15,000 units were transferred to the next process after 100% completion, and the balance 5,000 units are still in process. Now the question is, how to value these 15,000 units? Now see, these 15,000 units can be entirely from the units that are introduced, that is 16,000 units, or it can be from 4,000 from opening work in progress, and the balance we are left out is 11,000 from the units introduced. So these are the two possibilities. So which approach to follow? So herein for the purpose of calculating the value of units transferred and to calculate the value of closing work in progress, two approaches are possible as suggested by ICAI. That is, we can either use FIFO method, or secondly we can use weighted average method. These two methods will only come into picture when there is an opening work in progress given in the question. If there is no opening work in progress, no need for these two methods. So FIFO method, if it is FIFO method, we'll assume that the units FIFO is first in, first out. So it means what? From opening work in progress, 4,000 units will be processed and transferred, and units started and completed will be from balance 16,000. So we are left out with 11,000 units. So this is how we will transfer 15,000 units. As far as weighted average method is concerned, no need to do any sort of bifurcation. I will be discussing further with the help of an example for weighted average method. So this is all what about if opening work in progress is given in the question. So I'm repeating again, opening work in progress is 4,000 units. Units introduced is 16,000. So aggregate, we have 20,000 inputs in hand. 15,000 were transferred to the next process and 5,000 units are still in process. So when talking about how to calculate the value of these two, because there are two types of input, one from opening work in progress and one from units introduced. So two approaches are possible. The first one is the FIFO approach and the second one is the weighted average. When talking about FIFO approach, first in, first out, that is, out of these 15,000 units that are transferred, 4,000 will be from opening work in progress and 11,000 will be from units started and completed during the year. So if you guys have any doubts in this part, you guys can please ask me. Apart from this, I request you guys to please copy, because thereafter we'll be starting with the question, practical question, if opening work in progress is given in the question. So whatever the queries you have, you guys can please ask me. Waiting for your queries, guys. Those who want to copy this part can please copy. We'll be discussing the concept of weighted average directly with the help of an example. So guys, I'm starting with example number 5, that is equivalent basic. So let's start with example number 5 of my material. That is, following information is available regarding process A for the month of January 2020. Production records are given. Units in process as on 1st January 2020, that is, material is 100% complete, labor and overheads are 25% complete. That is, the total value of opening work in progress is, the total number of units of opening work in progress is given, that is 4,000. Material is processed up to 100% and labor and overheads are completed up to 25%. So this much work is already completed in the previous year. So the balance work will be completed. So the balance work will be completed this year. Units introduced, that is 16,000. Units completed, that is 14,000. Units in process, that is at the year end, that is 6,000. The percentage of completion is also given. The valuation of work in progress of opening work in progress is given, that is material cost incurred till date is 6,000, labor 1,000, overheads 1,000, total is 8,000. Further, the expenses incurred during this month is material 25,600, labor 15,000, overheads 15,000, the total is 55,600. You are required to prepare a statement of equivalent production, statement showing cost for each element, statement showing apportionment of cost, and process account for process A using both FIFO and weighted average method. So let's start, guys. We have to prepare process account. Here in opening work in progress is given, that is 4,000 units. And the total cost of these 4,000 units is 8,000. Material is given, that is 25,600. So 2 material. Labor is given, that is 15,000, and overheads are also 15,000. The units introduced are 16,000. In this question, there is no normal loss and abnormal loss involved. So ignore this part. So by process B and by closing work in progress. The units that are transferred to the next process is 14,000. And still that are in process is 6,000. So there was an input of 4,000 units. Sorry, there was an opening work in progress of 4,000 units. 16,000 units were introduced. So total we have 20,000 units in hand. Out of these 20,000 units, certain units are transferred to, that is 14,000 units are transferred to the next process, and balance 6,000 units are still in process. Now we have to calculate first of all the cost per unit, and we have to apportion the cost. The major motto of this question is to calculate these two figures. That is, what will be the value what will be the value of units that are transferred and what will be the value of closing work in progress. So let's start, guys. Statement of equivalent number of units, statement of equivalent production. Now guys, I'll be solving this question first using FIFO method and then with weighted average method. So you guys can differentiate that what is the difference. So let's start with FIFO method first. Total material. Since the percentage of completion of labor and overheads are same in case of opening and closing work in progress, so that's why I'm preparing only one column, that is labor and overheads. Percentage of completion and equivalent number of units, percentage of completion and equivalent number of units. Now guys, total units are transferred, that is 14,000. Since we are using FIFO method, so we'll assume 4,000 will be from opening work in progress and balance 10,000 units from inputs made during the year. I repeat again, since 14,000 units are transferred, so we will assume that 4,000 units will be transferred from opening work in progress and balance 10,000 units will be from units started and completed during the year end. 8,000 is given in the question, Miss Ruchita. So now let's start, guys. Units transferred. $4,000 units from opening work in progress. Now guys, very important point. It is given that we have an opening work in progress of 4,000 units, which are 100% completed in last year itself in respect of material and overheads and labor, 25% completed. So this much is already done last year. So how much work will be done this year? No work is required on material because the entire material was processed last year itself. As far as labor and overheads is concerned, 25% is already completed last year. So balance 75% will be completed this year. So this will be 3,000. Now since 10,000 is from the units introduced during the year and they are not processed at all, so that's why they are 100% processed during this year. So units started and completed. That is the balance 10,000 units. Say they were 100% processed this year itself on material and labor and overheads also 100% processed this year only. So this is all what about the units that are transferred, that is 14,000. Now when talking about closing work in progress, total 6,000 units were transferred. These 6,000 units were from these inputs made during the year, that is inputs So the entire work that is done in this year is given in the question, that is units in process as on 31st March 2020. the material is completed by 100% and labor is completed by 33.33%. It represents what? That since it is from the input made during the year, it means what? 100% material was processed in this year itself and labor and overheads are processed in this year. That is 33.33%. So 6,000 units is the closing work in progress. They were 100% processed in case of material, and in case of labor and overheads, they were processed by 33.33%. So 33 into 1. So we have got the equivalent number of units now. 16,000 in case of material and 15,000 in case of labor and overheads. So if you guys have any doubts in this part, you guys can please ask me. Waiting for your queries, whatever the queries you have, why this 75%, why material is 0%, whatever the queries you have, you guys can please ask me. Waiting for your queries, guys. Waiting for your queries, guys. Any one of you have any doubts in this part, can please post your queries. Now, since we have got the equivalent number of units, so let's proceed further with calculation of cost per unit. Further, the question is asking us to prepare statement showing cost element for statement showing cost for each element. We have to prepare statement showing cost for each element. Now let's start with the material part. Let's start with the material part. Total material cost that is incurred is, this part is of no use, it's already discussed. The material cost that is incurred this year is 25,600. This much is the cost that is incurred during this year, divided by equivalent number of units, that is 16,000 for material. Similarly, for labor, the total cost that is incurred during this year is 15,000. So 15,000 divided by 15,000, so you've got rupees 1 per unit. Similarly, for overheads, the cost is 15,000 rupees only. So this will be rupees 1.6. So we have got the cost per unit for all the three elements, that is material, labor and overheads. Now let's prepare a statement showing apportionment of cost, the last statement. The major purpose of this exercise is to calculate these two values. So now we are moving towards the last part of the question, how to calculate the value of these two. So let's start. So statement showing apportionment of cost, wherein we will first calculate the value of units that are transferred. Now we are calculating the total cost step by step. So these 14,000 units that were transferred, 4,000 were from opening work in progress and 10,000 were from units that are processed, inputs that are made during the year and processed fully during the year. So this is how the 14,000 units are transferred. So let's take the cost of opening work in progress which has already been incurred, that is given in the question, that is 8,000 rupees. This much is the cost that is already incurred last year. Now we will, as we have further processed the opening work in progress, so we have to add the additional cost that is incurred during the year on these 4,000 units. Now see, as far as material is concerned, it is 100% processed. However, as far as labor and overheads are concerned, they are 75% processed. So either we do take 75% of this, 75% of this into 4,000 units, or alternatively we can take 3,000 units for labor and overheads. The equivalent number of labor and overheads, equivalent number of units for labor and overheads are 3,000 into 1 into 1. Alternatively, what you can do is, you can simply calculate 1 into 75%, 1 into 75%, that is 1.5 into 4,000. So both these approaches are correct, guys. So either you can first calculate the cost of work in progress like 1 into 75%. Since nothing is done on material this year, so 1 into 75% and 1 into 75%. So this is how into the total number of work in progress units, that is 4,000. Or you can follow this approach also. Both the approaches are correct. So total will be 3,000 and 3,000. In both the cases, the answer will be the same. So this is the details of, this is the value of opening work in progress. That is the cost that is incurred last year, that is 8,000 plus 6,000, the cost apportioned in this year. Now, the remaining 10,000 units, they were 100% processed this year. So units started and completed, that is 10,000 units into the cost will be 3.6. That is 36,000. So first we calculated the total cost of 4,000 units, that is the cost incurred last year plus the further processing cost of this year. So the 4,000 units cost we have got, that is 6 plus 8, 14,000. Now about these 10,000 units, nothing was done last year. These 10,000 units were 100% processed this year itself. So the total cost of 100% processing is rupees 3.6. So 10,000 units into 3.6, 36,000. So the total cost of units transferred will be 8,000 plus 6 plus 36,000. So this will be 50,000. When talking about the calculation of closing work in progress, as far as material is concerned, 6,000 is the equivalent number of units into material cost 1.6. As far as labor and overheads, they are processed by only 33.33%. So for the equivalent number of units of labor is 2,000 and overheads is also 2,000. So 2,000 into 1 and 2,000 into 1. So the value of closing work in progress will be 13,600. So this is how this total cost is apportioned among these two. That is 50,000 is apportioned to process B and 13,600 is apportioned to closing work in progress. So the total tallies, that is 8,000 plus 25,600 plus 30,000. That is 63,600. So this is how you have to present in exam and how you have to solve the entire question. That is, you have to prepare process account. These two figures are yet to be calculated. So we'll prepare the statement of equivalent production, wherein we'll first find out the equivalent number of units. As far as opening work in progress is concerned, there are 4,000 units which are already processed up to certain extent last year. That is 100% work was completed last year itself, and 25% in case of labor and overhead work was completed last year itself. So this year we have completed only 75% of the labor and overhead work. Therein units started and completed, they are 100% processed during this year itself. So 100%. As far as closing work in progress is concerned, the closing work in progress is given in the question, that is 6,000 units which are completed. 100% work was done during this year itself, and 33.33% work was done in this year itself in respect of labor and overhead. So this is how we calculated the equivalent number of units. Now the next part, that is statement showing calculation of cost per unit. So the overall material cost that is incurred, see, these two figures represent the work done during this year. So we have taken the material cost that is incurred during this year, that is 25,600, divided by the equivalent number of units, that is 16,000. So this is how we got 1.6. Similarly, for labor, the total cost incurred in this year is 15,000 divided by equivalent number of units, that is 15,000. And similarly, for overheads also, 15,000 is the cost that is incurred during this year divided by 15,000. So this is how we got rupees 1 per unit. Now we have calculated the cost per unit. Now statement showing apportionment of cost. As I told you, these 14,000 units that are transferred, of this 4,000 are from opening work in progress and 10,000 units are processed during this year. So when talking about the calculating the cost of these 4,000 units, the cost that is already incurred last year, that is 8,000. Now the cost that is incurred during this year, that is 3,000 on labor, 3,000 units into 1 and 3,000 equivalent number of units into 1 for labor and overhead. Why not material? Because no work was done in respect of material this year. So this is how we have got 8 plus 6, 14,000. As far as these 10,000 units are concerned, they are 100% processed during this year itself. So 10,000 into 3.6, 36,000. So this is the value of units that are transferred. That is 50,000. Now when talking about closing work in progress, the equivalent number of units in case of material is 6,000. So 6,000 into 1.6. In case of labor and overheads, it is 2,000. So 2,000 into 1 and 2,000 into 1. So this is how the value of closing work in progress is calculated. Now I request you guys to please copy this part, and if you have any queries, then you guys can please post your queries. Giving you 3 to 4 minutes time. So please post all your queries. If you have any conceptual queries, waiting for your doubts and queries, Guys, waiting for your queries, guys. In the meanwhile, those who want to copy this part can please copy. Whosoever want to post the queries, please post. In the meanwhile, those who want to copy, please copy. I'm giving you 2 minutes time, so please do it. Thereafter, I'll be addressing all your queries related to this question. Many queries. So let me address each and every one by one. This concept is very, very important from examination point of view. In every alternate attempt, you will see the question of process costing and specifically of concept relating to equivalent production, guys. So now there is a query from Ramakrishna sir, how you got 75%? See, Mr. Ramakrishna, see, Mr. Krishna, see, it is given in the question that the opening work in progress is 4,000 units and the work already completed last year is, in case of material, 100% and labor and overheads 25%. So this much is the closing work in progress of the last year. That is the work that is completed last year. So when talking about this year, how much work will be completed? Very simple. The balance work. Since material is 100% processed, so no need to do anything on material. As far as labor and overheads, they are 25% processed last year. So the 75% will be processed this year only. 100% minus 25%, 75%. Sambhavi Pandey, sir, why you have taken 100% cost of material in units started and completed? See, we have made an input of total 16,000 units. And further, the units that are transferred to the next process are 14,000 units. Of this, 4,000 units were from opening work in progress and 10,000 is from what? The units that are newly introduced. So these are the raw material, and raw material need to be processed. That's why I have taken 100% in case of. And further, the units are transferred to the next process only when they are 100% complete. So that's why I have taken 100%. If in a particular process the units are not 100% processed, they will be closing work in progress. So I repeat again, the units are transferred to the next process only when they are 100% complete. That's why 100% complete. And since these units, the 4,000 units, the opening work in progress were already completed up to certain extent. So balance work that is conducted during this year, that is only on labor and overhead, the remaining 75% is considered. Yes, Rohan Jain, if opening work in progress already completed at the beginning of the year is 90%, then we will write 10%. Yes. See guys, let's take an example. There is an opening work in progress of 10,000 units and it is given that in respect of material they are 80% complete. It means what? 80% work is already done last year. So herein this year we will write 20%. Similarly, in case of labor and overhead, let's say 75% work was already completed last year. So we will complete the balance work this year, that is 25%. So in opening work in progress, if it is given 75% work is already completed in case of labor and overhead. So it means what? In this year, we have to complete the remaining 25%. So Rohan Jain, if it is given in the question that 90% opening work in progress is completed, it means what? This year, in this statement, we will write 10%. Vranda Agarwal sir, what is the meaning of material 100% complete and labor 33% complete? It means what? That whatever the material cost is in relation to closing work in progress, it is already incurred. As far as labor and overheads job is concerned, they were only completed till 33.33%. The balance work will be completed next year. That is 66.667% work will be completed next year. Sir, in the module, the answer is different. See, in module, they have solved using weighted average method. So I'll be discussing this question using weighted average method also, guys. So have some patience. Thank you so much, Pooja. Sir, why opening work in progress 8,000 taken? See, opening work in progress is given in the question, that is material 6,000, labor and overhead 1,000 and 1,000. So 8,000 is given in the question. That's why I have taken 8,000. Mr. Teshwant sir, please explain the statement of apportionment of cost. Okay, fine. This one is for you, Mr. Teshwant. See dear, when talking about statement of apportionment of cost, it means what? We have to calculate the cost of units that are transferred and the value of work in progress, that is closing work in progress. Now, when talking about units that are transferred, that is in aggregate 14,000 units, 4,000 units were from opening work in progress. Now, of these 4,000 units, 8,000 is already incurred last year. So 8,000 is the cost that is incurred last year. Remaining cost that is incurred this year is, see, there is no cost incurred as far as material is concerned. However, labor and overhead, the cost incurred is total 75%. So 75%, the equivalent number of units is 3,000. So 3,000 into labor cost 1. And similarly, overhead's equivalent number of units is 3,000. So 3,000 into 1. So this is how we got the total cost of opening work in progress, that is 8,000. The cost incurred last year and the further processing cost on these 4,000 units, that is 6,000. So total 14,000. Now remaining 10,000 units were fully processed during this year. That's why 10,000 into the total cost, that is 3.6. When talking about closing work in progress, the equivalent number of units in case of material is 6,000. So it's 6,000 into 1.6. And labor and overheads, that is 2,000 and 2,000. So 2,000 into 1 and 2,000 into 1. So this is how I got 13,600. Similarly, you can calculate it in alternate way also. That is, we'll calculate first the cost per unit. That is material. It is 1.6. And since material is 100% done during this year, so 1.6 into 100%. So 1.6. Labor 1. The work that is completed is only 33%. So 1 into 0.33. So this will be 0.33. Similarly, for overheads also 1 into 0.33. So now 1 point. $2.26666. So 2.26666 into the closing work in progress, that is of 6,000 units. So we'll get 13,600. So both these approaches are correct, but I suggest you to stick to only this approach. In both the cases, the answer will be the same. So as of now, I'm erasing it. Just don't want to create confusion in your mind. So in simple terms, this is how the closing work in progress is calculated. Abhijit, this part is Abhijit. Sir, why opening stock value is not included in the cost of material, labor, and overhead? So we can divide the total cost by each head. See, this is done in the weighted average method. When talking about FIFO method, we have to calculate each and every cost separately. But in weighted average method, we have to simply take the aggregate cost. Thank you so much, Mr. Reddy. Thank you so much for the compliment. Sir, new unit introduced is 16,000 in question. Where did it go? See, out of these 16,000 units, 10,000 were completed and transferred to the next process, and balance 6,000 units are still in process. I repeat again, dear Mr. Siddharth, out of these 16,000 units, 10,000 were transferred to the next process, and balance 6,000 units are still in process. Thank you so much, Teshwang. I'll be teaching all the chapters. Don't worry. Thank you, Mr. Sandhu. Sunil, it is the rounding of difference, my dear. Mr. Gandhi, I'll be discussing one more sum, but not in this session, the next session. And we'll try to extend the next session because, again, we have to finish joint and byproduct anyways. Without wasting time, now let's discuss one more method. That is the weighted average method for the same question. So you guys will be able to differentiate that what is the difference between FIFO method and weighted average method. So let's start, guys. Again, the object of this weighted average method is the same, to calculate the value. Now guys, as compared to FIFO method, the weighted average method is very simple. See, total we have an input of 4,000 opening work in progress and units introduced, that is 16,000. So total we have 20,000 units. Out of this, 14,000 units were transferred and 6,000 units are work in progress, closing. So now we are discussing weighted average method, and in this method, no need to do bifurcation. How much is the opening work in progress, unit started and completed? Very simple. There will be only 2 points that will appear in this statement of equivalent production. So first one is units transferred. That is total 14,000 units were transferred, and since the units are transferred, so they are 100% complete. So 100% 14,000, 100% 14,000. Again, I repeat, since 14,000 units are transferred, so you'll assume that they are 100% complete, and this is how we have calculated the equivalent number of units transferred. When talking about closing work in progress, the total number of units are 6,000 and 100% work was done this year in case of material. So 100%, that is 6,000, and 33 1/3%. So this will be 2,000. So we have got the equivalent number of units, that is 14 plus 6, 20,000. And for this, it will be 16,000. So no need to do bifurcation that how much is the opening work in progress, how much is the closing work, how much is the unit started and completed. Simply 14,000 units were transferred, they were 100% complete. So 14,000 into 100%, 14,000, 14,000 into 100%, 14,000. As far as closing work in progress is concerned, it is given in the question that material is processed 100%. So 6,000 units is the closing work in progress. So 6,000 into 100%, 6,000 into 33. That is 2,000. So this is how we will get the total equivalent number of units, that is 14 plus 6, 20, and 14,000 plus 2,000, that is 16,000. Now, the same step, that is statement of cost per unit. Now, very important guys, as far as material is concerned, since we have not bifurcated like how much was completed this year, how much was completed this year, so here in the material cost also will be taken aggregate, that is the cost already incurred last year plus the additional cost. So in case of material, the cost already incurred is 6,000 plus this year the additional cost is incurred, that is 25,600. I repeat again, the material cost that is already incurred last year, that is 6,000. Since we have taken 14,000 units that are 100% complete, that is, it includes the work that is completed last year and the work that is completed this year. That's why we have taken the cost that is incurred last year and the cost that is incurred this year. So 6,000 the cost that is incurred last year plus 25,600 the cost that is incurred this year divided by equivalent number of units, that is 20,000. $1.58. Labor, the cost incurred this year is 15,000 and the cost incurred last year is 1,000 divided by equivalent number of units, that is 16,000, so 1. Overheads, again the cost incurred this year plus the cost incurred last year. Why I am taking last year cost? Because I am taking the entire 14,000 units as 100%. This 14,000 units 100% represent what 10,000 units which are completed entirely during this year, plus the 4,000 units which were processed somehow in the last year and some in the current year. That's why we are taking 14,000 100%. That's why we are taking the total cost also 100%. So the total cost per unit we have got, that is 1233.58. Now the valuation part. That is units transferred. This cost 3.58 includes the cost incurred during this year as well as the last year. Because we have already added 6,000, 1,000 and 1,000. So units transferred are total 14,000 into the total cost till date. This 14,000 into 3. 50,120. This method is much more simple than FIFO method when talking about closing work in progress. The material equivalent number of units is 6,000 into 1.58. The labor equivalent number of units is 2,000 into 1. And overheads also equivalent number of units 2,000 into 1. So 50,120 and 13,480. So this is how the weighted average method is solved. It is the weighted. In this method, no need to do bifurcation that how much was the raw material, how much was the opening work in progress, how much it is processed. Simply take the total, and here since we are taking the total number of units, that's why we are taking the total amount of cost also. So whatever the queries you have, you guys can please post your queries. Thank you so much, Madhvi. Mr. Shekhar, we are almost done with the session anyways. Very good morning. Kushi Jogi sir, in question, if no method is mentioned, then which method to use? Weighted average method or FIFO method? So see, if the question, see now, very important point, very good question, Kushi. If the question is silent, which method to use? See guys, FIFO method will apply only when, one second guys. FIFO method will apply only when the percentage of completion of opening work in progress is given separately. I repeat again, here in this question, the percentage of opening work in progress is given, that is material 100%, labor and overhead were 20%, 25% were complete. Now let's say if in a question, if it is not given, then we cannot apply FIFO method. So you have to just check this detail. And apart from this, if the question is silent, better use weighted average method only. That method is easy and a time saving method. Apart from this, any other doubts, guys? Waiting for your queries because we are almost done with this session. We have to discuss one more question. But again, since the time is running and you guys have to go to office for articleship or whatever it is, so we'll be discussing that question in the next session, that is on Monday. So whatever the queries you have in relation to equivalent concept of equivalent number of units, you guys can please post the query. I'll wait for next 4 or 5 minutes. Thereafter, I'll wind up the session or conclude the session. Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you so much. Those who want to copy can please copy. Why I have solved this question with both the method, the only reason is that you guys can differentiate that what is the difference. Miss Pooja, sir, please explain the statement of cost per unit. See, Pooja, when we are taking 100%, when we are taking the 100% of these 4,000 opening work in progress unit, so that's why we are taking the cost also that is incurred last year. So material cost, that is 25,600, that is incurred during this year, plus the material cost that is incurred last year, 6,000 divided by number of units, that is 20,000. So this is how I got 1.58. Similarly, for labor, the cost incurred this year plus the cost incurred last year divided by 16,000. Why I am taking the cost incurred last year? Because these 4,000 units which were of this certain percentage which was processed last year are also considered here. That is why we are taking 100% and 100%. So since we are considering the units part also, so we have to consider the cost part also. Simply, again, in case of overheads, 15,000 plus 1,000 divided by 16,000. Thank you so much, Mr. Wangchuk. Thank you so much, Mr. Rafiq. Thank you so much, Sunil. Yes, Jagadevi. Yes, Jagadevi, you can leave the session because the session is over. If I'm just checking if there are any queries. Thank you so much, Sandeep. Riya Bhatia, still I have to discuss one more point relating to process costing. So after the next session, you can solve each and you will be able to solve each and every question of process costing. Any other doubts, any other queries? Waiting for your queries, guys. I hope you guys are clear with what is the difference between FIFO method and weighted average method. So fine, guys, I think everyone is clear with the concepts and everyone is thorough with the concept. I tried my level best to cover each and every point in detail. So hopefully you guys are now clear with the concept. Again, do make a note of this, that there is no alternate of concept learning. So costing is all what about concepts. If you are clear with the concept, you can solve any question. Because many students face this problem in exam, sir. Oh, sir, the question was different. It was not as per the study material. See, guys, the examiner is asking you what they have provided in the material. But yes, the question might differ. So why you guys are not being able to solve the question? Because you just try to memorize the format. After this, after that, after this, after that. No need to memorize the format. There are no formats in costing only. There are no formulas in costing only. Just try to remember the concept. If you are thorough with the concept, you can solve any question of costing. So that's what I'm saying. Anyways, take care, guys. God bless you. Practice what I have discussed in this session. In next session, we'll be discussing joint byproduct and plus one question, the advanced question that is left out, that is the question number 6. So that's it for the day, guys. Thank you so much for your time and patience and enjoy your weekend. Party hard. Thank you so much. I'm offline.